Carson. Can you hear us?
I can.
Excellent, Bob. Thanks for joining us, Carson. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you, Rob.
Yeah, likewise. So welcome everybody to today's episode of Demystifying Microsoft. And I'm so excited to be joined by Carson Heady. If you don't know Carson, I'll share a little bit about his background, and he's got 4 books to his name. His latest one, Salesman on Fire, excellent read. If you haven't got it, go out and get it now. Carson also has his own podcast by the same name, Salesman on Fire. So if you haven't subscribed to that, that's another thing to do after today's episode. And Carson is also a co-host of multiple other podcasts. I was in my research, Carson, I was like, oh my goodness, there's so many of them. They keep going. I don't know where you find all the time. So
it's hard.
Yeah, right. And on top of that, you also are a contributor to Dale Carnegie for a lot of sales content. So that's so much going on there. You're the #1 social seller inside of Microsoft. And I'd argue globally, you're a thought leader on that in the space of social selling. So that is all on top of his day job. So Carson,
Rob, you're too kind. You make me feel a lot better just coming in. It's been a long day, and then you've lifted me up. You know how to make your guests feel good.
Right. Yeah, I know. Well, and as I said, that's all on top of your day job as a sales leader inside of Microsoft. So with that, maybe Carson, you could take a moment and just share with us your role inside of Microsoft and specifically around the industry you focus on, and maybe a little bit about your team or the makeup of your team, just so people in the audience understand kind of what it's like in Carson's world.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. And thanks again, Rob, for having me. Thanks for the opportunity. I always love talking about my team because they're incredible. And I've had the good fortune of working with Microsoft for the last 9 years. I've spent the majority of that time in the SMC, so small, medium, and corporate, and the healthcare industry team in enterprise health. And so currently today, I am a team leader for a healthcare team that supports med device, med tech organizations and some of our EMR organizations. And, they're spread out all across the U.S. In my roles here, I've supported anywhere from 3 to 200 plus customers at any given point in time. And I've supported all the industry verticals, but for the last 3 years in informal healthcare. So it's been a phenomenal opportunity. My team, as I mentioned, is spread out across the country, most of them located where, key customers of theirs are headquartered. Yeah. And, it's a great team. It's a team of client directors, so account executives in the enterprise and the strategic enterprise space, and then also our technology strategists. So that's basically, where we reside, where we play. It's been a very interesting time, as you can imagine, not just within the tech space, but also working with our healthcare clients. So paramount for us, Rob, right now is just really staying at the pulse of what's happening in the industry and how we can meet our customers where they are during these times.
That's great. And that's actually a great segue into what I really wanted to dive deep today is hear from you how you do that. How do you use the concept of social selling and the approach of social selling to, one, build your career, to further the mission of your team today at Microsoft? And then what I'd like to do is pivot a little bit and talk about how we could use that same concept or the same approach of social selling as partners, as Microsoft partners, to both connect with our customers and to connect with Microsoft and connect with the sellers inside of Microsoft, the field people, the technical people. So I'd really love to hear from you and start with your journey around social selling and how you've taken that to the next level in your career.
I love that question, Rob, and it's ironic because I actually gave a presentation this morning to a lot of our global PDMs specific to that topic. How can we leverage social selling better in the partner ecosystem? How can we arm our partners with some of these tools and methodologies? Now, I created my social selling platform as kind of a means to an end. I always try to be a problem solver. I hear problems from leadership, and then I go out and I try to solve them and figure out how to best do that. And I remember vividly hearing from our senior leadership years ago, hey, we're too beholden to relationships with IT and procurement, which are relationships we need. We absolutely have to have them. but we also need these other line of business relationships to truly be partners, to truly
Right.
collaborate, to truly transform with them. And so that's where I started leveraging. I was thinking to myself, well, a lot of these folks, they're out on LinkedIn. Let me go out and try to create and nurture relationships, leveraging LinkedIn and other social tools. So that's where it began. The first year, I spent a lot of time doing this, prospecting. And over the last decade, I've really, focused on how can I use every tool at my disposal. Some move in and out of my arsenal. Some matter more in certain cases. The approach changes. And I like to tell everybody your social selling approach is going to be personal to you because you'll pick mediums that you're comfortable with. Not everybody does a podcast. If you'd have told me 5 years ago I'd be doing one, I would not have believed you. But even today, like I'll use my podcast and I'll interview customer executives. And that's how we forge a relationship. So you never know how these things can work. You're not just going out on LinkedIn and posting about your company and expecting POs to come in. That's not how it works. It's how can I use this to reach out to someone, forge a relationship, show up with perspective, ask for a meeting, ask for the opportunity to provide value. And in a lot of cases, it's been because customers invest substantially with Microsoft. I'm able to, instead of trying to sell them anything, it's really showing up to say, hey, I'd love to make sure you're aware of all the resources that you're entitled to. And that got a lot of great meetings. That developed a lot of phenomenal relationships. And that ultimately has helped me and my team be very successful from a results perspective. In fact, just having, I would say, 14 deals for well over $250 million that would never have existed had it not been for meeting senior executives on LinkedIn. And so as a partner, you're doing a lot of the same things. And often you are doing exactly what we were just talking about. You're demystifying the Microsoft ecosystem. You have a very unique value. It could be niche. You may have your own customized SaaS offering. Whatever it is, you've got some type of story to tell. And there's value that you can bring to those executives. So as a partner, I would actually look at it from two different lenses. One, how can I create better relationships with customers? And I focus on quality of my messaging, quantity of outreach. If I reach out to 100 executives, I'm going to get some meetings. So that's why I'm willing to do it. The biggest deal I ever got, I reached out to over 500 director and above in that organization. And then last, I can control the consistency by which I do this over time. I schedule dedicated prospecting time. But the other lens is reaching out to Microsoft sellers. Can you imagine as an aggressive and eager partner, if you're willing to go out and you have, in a lot of cases, my experience with the partner ecosystem, a lot of times partners have better relationships than I do. So it becomes less about me trying to double down on the customer relationship. How can I rally behind my partner? How do I support them, help them win? So I'm reaching out to them and saying, hey, let's collaborate. How can I support you, bring resources to help you win? Because guess what? If that partner wins, customer wins, I win too. So as a partner, thinking about that counterintuitively, proactively going to Microsoft sellers and offering to prospect for them, ask for their lists, maybe where you have strong relationships, bring that to them. Those are the types of things that are going to get their ear because they've got a lot of noise, just like all sellers. There's a lot of vying for their attention. They're going to gravitate often toward the low-hanging fruit, which is why often we have the relationships with IT and procurement only. But if you just challenge yourself to get outside of that and focus on creating relationships elsewhere, it's amazing what you can achieve.
It really is. And I think you brought up such good points around the showing up, adding value. It's not that you just show up and POs are going to start flying in the door. It's all about showing up and adding value. And that, to me, it seems like that's the same concept you're using with your customers when you're reaching out. You're showing value, and no different when you're trying to connect with Microsoft and with the Microsoft sellers and the Microsoft architects. Is to your point, hey, let me prospect with you. Let me prospect for you. That's the kind of value that to me appears to be like just right front and center, because to your earlier point about the noise, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of partners and people show up saying, well, I want, instead of the I want. And I think that your concept around social selling is all about, no, I'm not showing up wanting, I'm showing up giving, I'm showing up adding value right out of the gate.
I love that, Rob. I mean, the best partner relationships that I've had have honestly just been because of people. It hasn't been because of all the offerings that the partner had. because a lot of partners will have a lot of different offerings. The best relationships have been because of people where, for instance, I do a lot of webinars. I'm the social selling lead for all of Microsoft Healthcare US. So I'll create webinars and newsletters, and we'll leverage these to, get directly to customers. But a lot of times we're shining a light on a partner, like it's a partner spotlight, and the partner's the star of the show. I'm just the marketing engine for it. So we're driving these out to, hundreds of attendees. We shine the light on the partner, but it's got to be a savvy partner that comes to me with that ability and willingness and desire and hunger to do that. The other thing too, I think about great partner play execution. One thing partners do a great job of in great circumstances is they'll align well to our solution plays.
Right.
The ability for us to create very focused and also scale partner plays, that's where the magic happens. So like, for instance, working with a partner directly and having a partner come to me proactively to say, hey, we've got MSAs with these customers, or, hey, we want to align to this solution play where we feel really strong. And then we look at ways where we can do very focused, if there's maybe one or two customer prospects, or maybe we do a webinar to the masses to really shine a light on that partner. I remember once upon a time, locking in time at the Microsoft Technology Centers with a partner for a day. We booked a room for the day. We invited customers to come in for like a 45-minute briefing around security to beget a workshop. We filled the day and had many, many, many opportunities that came out as a result of that. So those are just a few areas where I think we can really win together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the concept of the solution play, it's, I think over the last couple of years, people lost sight of how important that is. And as we start to come back to in-person events and the MTCs, the technology centers start opening up again, I think that's such a great opportunity to add value. Partners have all these resources they can bring tied in with the MTC resources. What a phenomenal idea in terms of, creating that relationship with the sellers.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was one of the things that came up in my presentation this morning was, these are ways that we can complement partners that I don't think we proactively look for. Not too long ago, I found out that a partner had a better relationship than I did with a customer. And I used LinkedIn. I went out and reached out to 32 different people that I knew at that partner and messaged them about this customer. I said, hey, let's connect. I'd love to figure out how we can maybe look for ways to invest, how we can maybe bring technical architects to bear to help you win here. And I got multiple replies. We had a call the next day as a result of that. But sometimes social selling looks different than what you might envision. It's just using social tools to move the ball down the field or to create and nurture relationships. And that can look like anything. So when you get intel, there's the old quote from Wall Street, the most valuable commodity is information. If you've got information that you can arm a seller with at Microsoft, or you can arm a customer with, that's that intriguing perspective that's going to get you the meeting. And Hi, Brian. Great to see the comment from Brian. Brian and I go way back. Great guy. I've learned a lot from him, and he is a model when it comes to partnering.
He is, and he does a great job of demonstrating value around the newsletters. That he does it in reverse. He's adding value to the partner community, and it's really it's amazing to see.
That's a good call out, Rob, because I think, like Brian as an example, and we were talking about this. I was talking with Brian not too long ago about this concept. And, that's something that he was kind of looking at ways that he could continue to engage and build community around what he was passionate about. So for all the partners out there, frankly, anyone watching, these are all things that you can continue to do to build community around what you do and to establish and build your brand. Brian's newsletter is a great example.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point about brand. I mean, partners think they have a brand in the market, but you also have a brand inside of Microsoft, and it's important to support that brand and to communicate that brand. So, maybe you could take a moment and share some of the best practices you've seen with partners that you work with, because I know as in the organization you're in and in the industry you're in, you rely heavily on the partner community. So, what are some of the things that you see from partners that are sort of model approaches to partnering with Microsoft?
Yeah, I love the question. And sometimes it's the outside the box approaches, like some of the things that we were just talking about webinars or focused solution plays. But, I think back about some of the work, I worked in the SMC channel for 5 years, and partners are my lifeblood. I had 200 plus accounts. Like, there's no way possible that I could have done all of that work. It was everything you can do to stay on top of true ups and renewals and things of that nature, the day-to-day maintenance of that relationship. And so partners are your lifeblood. You rely on them for intel. So, some of the best practices that I've seen around partnering is just making sure that you've set up the established cadence, making sure that you're sharing, what's top of mind, making sure that you're very transparent with your solution plays and priorities. It's important for me to know, like, what are differentiated solution areas or differentiated offerings that my partners have, especially being in an industry, right? So I'll give you an example. A couple of years back, when the pandemic began, there were some very differentiated, nuanced solutions that were being created specific to, having all the way from like creating data consortiums, all the way to virtual health platforms, all the way to managing vaccine distribution and all of those types of things. And so I think the key element is you've got to raise the flag. When you've got these differentiated solution areas, you've got to make sure that you're putting them on the radar of the sellers. And what I've seen as a great best practice is not just going to the sellers, but making sure that you're selling up the chain. There is so much focus right now on partnering. And we recently had the great fortune of getting a very partner-friendly CVP to take over health and public sector, right? So Tyler Bryson, and I've worked with him for years because I worked with him in the SMC channel. And so to have that discipline and that rigor around how we're partnering and making sure that partners are aligned, that's our teams and our sellers right now are not only incentivized to, but really continuing to be coached to have the discipline around ensuring that we have partner sharing for leads, making sure that we're creating and executing solution plays with partners. So there's never been a better time to make sure that your priorities, that your differentiated solutions, that all these things are front and center for your correlating Microsoft teams. And then the other one that would be top of mind for me, Rob, would be, again, to proactively go to some of these sellers and where they have customers where you have an MSA and you have paperwork with the client. Because I see, often the biggest pushback that I get in the enterprise space around, working with partners or new partners is because of sometimes the timetables that it can take. I mean, it can take months in order to, get an MSA in place. There's ways around that. You can obviously operate on MCS paper and things of that nature, but there's challenges to all that. So, where I've found a lot of success, especially where there's LSPs that may already be the custodian of the arrangement and there's paperwork in place, that would be low-hanging fruit. I'm always looking for services opportunities that I can deliver to LSPs or partners that have MSAs. And so, where you have those, that's not something that's widely known within Microsoft. So if you've got paper with these customers, proactively reach out to these sellers so that you can look for those low-hanging fruit services opportunities. Because trust me, the Microsoft sellers know what they want to sell. So if you show up with a solution, an easy solution to make that happen, that's where you're going to win.
Right. I mean, I kind of took away two things from what you said there. Is one, not only have the relationships are really critical to Microsoft, but it's the relevance that you bring to the table. So if you've got a relevant solution that solves a business problem, that's going to be of interest to them. And obviously the relevance of having an MSA and making that whole track smoother for everybody involved in the sale is so critical.
You nailed it.
Great. Well, Carson, this has been an amazing time. I really appreciate your insight into the whole partner community and how you partner with partners and your take on social selling. I think it's so critical and how it can really be leveraged to connect to customers, to connect to Microsoft. It's such an important part of the journey in partnering with Microsoft. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. And to socially listen, because you have the capability to go out and follow people, companies. I can't tell you how many times I've seen actionable intel that has come from social selling, which really just means I see in my LinkedIn or my Sales Navigator feed that there was M&A activity or that there was a new executive. And because of that, I reacted and responded created and nurtured a relationship, looked for ways to serve, especially in M&A situations. And ultimately, it led to wins for the customer, for a partner, and for my team. So I think we've just got to be very cognizant that social selling is really all about social listening, staying at the pulse of our customers, staying at the pulse of our industry, and just being more informed.
Yeah, and adding value everywhere at every turn where you can add value is really bringing that to the table. And that. So again, thank you very much, Carson. I appreciate the time. And for everyone that was joined us today, thank you. And don't forget, get out there, get a copy of Carson's book. It's an amazing read. I finished it not too long ago. So thank you for writing it, Carson. That was really appreciate it. And you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Rob. Likewise. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.